Good morning, students. Today we'll do our second story of book Flamingo, Lost Spring. This story is written by Anise Jung. Anise Jung was born in Rourkela and spent her childhood and adolescence in Hyderabad. She received her education in Hyderabad and in United States of America. Her parents were both writers. Anise Jung began her career as a writer in India. She has been an editor and columnist of major newspapers in India and abroad, and has authored several books. The following story, The Lost Spring, is an excerpt from her book titled Lost Spring. Means the title of the book is also Lost Spring. Stories of Stolen Childhood. Here she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn these children to a life of exploitation. This was about the author. Now we'll discuss the title of the story, Lost Spring. It means spring is lost. So here the spring is the childhood period of children. Because childhood is always the most cherished, the most beautiful period of life. It is beautiful as well as formative period of life. So that is why she is talking about child laborers whose spring is snatched away from them. This story has again two stories. First, we'll read the story of rag pickers. Sometimes I find a rupee in a garbage. Why do you do this? Means the narrator, Anise Jung, asks a question to a child. I ask Sahib, whom I encounter every morning, scrounging means finding out, searching for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. Sahib left his home long ago, set amidst the green fields of Dhaka. His home is not even a distant memory. Means Sahib's family had left Dhaka long ago. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. His mother tells him. That is why they left. So the reason for leaving Dhaka is that there were storms and floods in Bangladesh. So that is why the people who worked in the fields in Bangladesh had to leave their country, and among those people were parents of Sahib also, looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. Now all these people who had come from Dhaka, Bangladesh, they live in the outskirts of big city of India, that is New Delhi. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. Go to school? I say glibly, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. The narrator then advises Sahib that he must go to school. Later on, she herself realizes that it is not possible because these are very poor people. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. This is the answer given by Sahib. And this line shows that Sahib is very anxious to go to school. If I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Jokingly, the author, the writer, asked her, if I open a school, will you join my school? Yes, he says, smiling broadly. He was very excited to know that he will be able to join a school if the author opens it. A few days later, I saw him running up to me. Is your school ready? This is again the dialogue spoken by Sahib, which clearly makes it evident that how anxious he was to join a school. He himself came up to the author and asked her if the school was ready. She promised him. It takes longer to build a school, I say, embarrassed. The author felt embarrassed because she had made a false promise to a child. at having made a promise that was not meant. But promises like mine are abound in every corner of his bleak world. Means his here bleak world means his dark world, the dark world of children like Sahib. They are full of false promises. After months of knowing him, I asked him his name. Sahib-e-Alam, he announces. The child told him that his full name was Sahib-e-Alam. He doesn't know what it means. If he knew its meaning, the Lord of the universe. The meaning of the name Sahib-e-Alam. Alam means universe. Sahib means one who is the master of this universe. He would have hard time believing it. Means the life of Sahib and his name are contradictory to each other. His name shows that he is the master of the universe, but he is a rag picker, a beggar. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Means Sahib always came in the morning along with a company of boys. Many other boys like Sahib were also with him, and they scrounge the garbage, dirt, garbage heaps on the sides of the road, and at noon they return. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. The author has been observing these children for many months, coming out of their homes, looking for something in the garbage, and then returning in the noon. So she had come to know each of the child. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I asked one. One day she asked one of the boys, why are you not wearing your chappals? My mother did not bring them down from shelf, he answered simply. The child replies that the chappals are kept on the shelf that is very high. I myself cannot take it from here, and my mother does not give it to me. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another who is wearing shoes that do not match. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes. Says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life, traveling across the country. I have seen children walking barefoot in cities on village roads. It is not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. Now, at this answer of the child, and another third child also replies, who is wearing mismatched chappals. Means two chappals of two different colors, it may be. And he also, one of the child says, I want shoes. She, not only these children, she had earlier observed many children in India were not wearing chappals or shoes, anything. They were walking barefoot. And she might have asked someone also about it. And the answer was, and the author herself thought it was given, the answer was given that it was their tradition to remain barefoot without wearing chappals or shoes. I wonder if it is only an excuse to explain away perpetual state of poverty. But author did not believe this thing. She thinks that people are afraid, people are shy of telling the reality. The reality might be that they cannot afford chappals or shoes. I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. As a young boy who would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. She now at this time. The present story is about the rag pickers. Now in this paragraph, the author recalls one more story. That was a story of a boy of a priest in the temple. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard, where lived the new priest, There were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting. Panting means breathing heavily, running. When you run, you pant. And threw his school bag on the folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Means she recalled an incident that happened how many years ago? Can anybody of you tell me? How many years ago? 30 years ago. She recalled an incident that happened 30 years back, that a child came to before the goddess and prayed for shoes. After 30 years, she visited the same place, and now there was another priest. And the son of that priest had school uniform, and the living of the priest was better, and the child had shoes also. So, it is clear that it had never been a tradition. It was only poverty that forced children to remain barefoot. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Means now this is not the same child who prayed. It is after 30 years. Now she means to say that now the children of priests can also afford chappals and shoes. Young boys like the son of priest now wore shoes. The line is clear? But many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remain shoeless. Means at the present times, the living condition of temple priests have become better than 30 years before. But the condition of rag pickers is still the same. They do not have the shoes to wear. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it metaphorically. Means these children live on the outskirts, and the name of that place is Simapuri. Simapuri is very close to New Delhi. But metaphorically, it is far away from New Delhi. In New Delhi, the living style of people is very polished, is very high, is very sophisticated, but the living style, the lifestyle of the people living in Simapuri is completely opposite to the lifestyle of people living in New Delhi. So that is why it is metaphorically apart. Those who live here are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. Sahib's family is among. As we have already discussed that these people came to India, in now the time is also mentioned 1971. In 1971, there was a war between Pakistan and India, and as a result of that war, this new country Bangladesh came into existence. Sahib's family is among them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. Wilderness means a forest. It still is, but it is no longer empty. In structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage and running water, live 10,000 rag pickers. Now in these lines, the living condition is clearly described. This is a slum area, and near about 10,000 people live in that slum area, and their profession is rag picking. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity. Means they do not have even their identity. They are refugees still. Without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on the voter list and enable them to buy grain. So these are the vote bank of political leaders also. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach here means empty stomach, no food, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grains. The people are still happy that they are living here in absolute poverty, because their condition was worse when they lived in Bangladesh. says a group of women in tattered saris. When I ask them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. Wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes. Transit home means movable homes. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. Becoming partners in survival here means becoming rag pickers. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. Their profession, their means of livelihood is rag picking. Through the years, it has acquired the proportions of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof. Again, it is a image. Garbage is their home. Garbage is their food. It means they earn their food and their home through garbage, because they pick some things, some paper, some cardboard, anything that they can sell and earn money. But the roof is leaking here means they do not earn sufficient money after selling whatever they pick from the garbage. But for a child, it is even more. But for a child, it is more than a survival. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Sahib says, his eyes lighting up. Sahib tells the author that sometimes he finds a 10 rupee note, sometime 1 rupee coin, and he is very excited while telling these things. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage. Sometimes I find a silver coin in this garbage. You don't stop scrounging, and there is hope to find more. Means they search for silver coins, rupee note, or any money coin. It seems for children garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. Means the meaning of garbage is different for children and for parents. For parents it is their livelihood, but for children it is full of fun. For children it is wrapped in wonder. For elders it is a means of survival. The difference is made clear here. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching 2 young men dressed in white playing tennis. Another day, the author watched that Sahib was standing outside a fenced gate, watching 2 young men playing tennis. I like the game, he hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. I go inside when no one is around. He admits the gatekeeper lets me use the swing. There is a swing inside that fenced gate. And Sahib explains to the author that he likes to watch playing those 2 young men. And whenever there is no one in that ground, the gatekeeper allows him to go inside and he takes a swing over there. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. Someone gave them to me. And on that day, Sahib was also wearing a tennis shoes. On asking by the author, he replied that someone had given him. He says in the manner of an explanation, the fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them doesn't bother him. But the author notices that there was a hole in one of the shoes and the rich boy might have thrown it away, and Sahib found the shoes from the garbage. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with the hole is a dream come true. Because for the poor children who do not have chappal or shoes to wear, If they get a tattered shoe or a shoe with hole, it is just like a dream come true. Their dream is fulfilled. But the game he is watching so intently his means with interest, carefully, is out of his reach. Means, but he cannot afford to play that tennis game which he likes very much. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. Another day, when she met Sahib again, he is going to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. He is carrying a canister of steel. I know now work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. Then Sahib tells her that he works in the tea stall. I am paid 100 rupees and all my meals. Now I get 100 rupees per month as a salary and 2 meals a day. Does he like the job? This question is asked by the author to herself. But she tries to find it out whether Sahib is happy. I ask, her face I see has lost the carefree look. But she notices that the face of Sahib is not as bright as it used to be when he was a rag picker. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. Earlier, when he was a rag picker, he used to carry a plastic bag over his shoulder to put the things, whatever he picked from the rag, the garbage. But now he is carrying a steel canister, which seemed heavier. It does not mean that the weight of the canister is heavy than the weight of the plastic bag. It means that his heart is heavy now. Although he is earning 800 rupees per month, he is getting 2 meals a day. Earlier he was not able. Sometimes 1 meal a day, sometimes not even that. The bag was his. But what is the difference? The plastic bag belonged to Sahib himself. But this is a steel canister. It is made of steel. It is costlier, but it does not belong to Sahib. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. The canister does not belong to Sahib. It belongs to the owner of the tea stall. Sahib is no longer his own master. Why Sahib is not looking happy? Because he has become a child laborer now. Earlier he was not. He just enjoyed picking the things from garbage. But now he earns 800 rupees per month, and no doubt he gets 2 meals a day also, but he is no longer the master of his will. Now he has become a laborer. So this is the one story. We'll do the second tomorrow.